best way to grow in your self improvement journey is to face all your fears head on. Everything you have ever wanted is on the other side of your fears. Welcome back, everybody, to the Insightful Podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Today, we will be speaking about the importance of facing your fears. So, without further ado, let's get into this. The beginning of self improvement is facing who you are. And to many of us, that might be a fearful situation in itself because the hardest thing to do is to blame yourself for everything. It's to take 100% accountability for where you currently are in your life. You know, everyone grows up with different circumstances and things that happen. And, a lot of those things can be difficult and can hold us back. But we can't allow those circumstances to define who we are. You know, if you make those things your identity, you'll never be able to grow away from them. So that's the biggest thing. That's why I know it's a big fear for many people because it was a big fear of mine. It was just facing who I was, seeing what was wrong with me, and overcoming that, right? So I think that's one of the first fears that you need to face and you need to challenge head on is face who you are, see what you don't like about yourself, and see how you can start growing from there, and don't spend too much time in that kind of like self-hatred because that is a hard balance. You want to have humility, you want to face who you are, but then you realize that maybe you're nowhere close to where you want to be or who you want to be, and then you end up spending so much time hating yourself for wasting those precious years or for being who you are. The best thing you can do is look at it logically and focus on how you are the person you are today and how you can grow from it. Don't spend too much time isolating the things that are wrong about you. Just recognize them and find a way to grow from there. Anytime you feel fear to do something that's important to you, that's exactly when you should do it. The best analogy I have for this is for my podcast guests. Sometimes you're just, thinking very superficially and you look at a follower count or something, or you look at their engagement and you say to yourself, am I really worthy enough to interview this person? And when you think like that, you immediately start to kickstart, I guess, some fear, right? Let's take a quick break to speak about the sponsor for the podcast. I am now working with a company called Attilius Apparel, and if you want Christian fitness wear that looks like or this, click the link in the description. Now let's get back into the podcast. Right? And in those moments, I feel like canceling, or I feel like I don't want to do the episode anymore. But once I have those feelings, I tell myself, this is exactly the person I should interview. Because if I am afraid to interview this person because maybe they might look at me a certain way or they might not think I'm a good podcast host, that is exactly what I need for my growth in the podcast or for my growth as a person, right? So anytime that you are about to do something that you know is important and you know needs to be done and you get that fear, that is exactly the thing you should be doing at that moment. The next thing you can kind of meditate on, and this is something I like looking at, is imagine how great of a person you would become if every single fear that you are faced with, you just attack it head on. You realize that I'm actually afraid to do this. Like I wake up and this is going to happen and I'm afraid. If it's like public speaking, for example, or if it's being in a new social setting that you're not used to, you might wake up that morning and realize, damn, I'm actually really afraid for today. I'm really afraid to do this one thing. But if you can just, in that moment of fear, ask yourself, who would I become if I would face this fear, if I overcame this fear. You know, you would be so much you would grow so much as a person if you just looked at everything like that. You just looked at everything like, this is an opportunity for my growth. I know I am scared shitless to do this one thing, but I'm going to do it anyways because I know I will come out better after this thing that I'm afraid of. So if you could just have that perspective every single time you're afraid of something, that is the easiest way to grow as a person. Also, you need to meditate and imagine who you could be if you accept and challenge all your fears. Because not only, like I just said, you might wake up one morning and you have to do something that you're afraid of doing. Imagine if you actually sought out these fears. You put yourself in situations where you knew you were going to be fearful of it and you didn't even have to do it, but you did it anyways. That is the best way to overcome fear because then you just look at it like a video game, right? Where there's that level that you know is extremely difficult, and maybe your personal character's level isn't high enough to defeat that villain or to beat that level, and yet you still try to face it anyways. And you end up winning. You end up winning early. I remember, like, if I could relate this to anything, it was like Pokemon, right? Every single time you would go to a new gym, the Pokemon would be higher level of the gym trainer, right? Or the gym owner. I kind of forget what it was. And there were some times where I would just speed run it. Like I would, be equal level with the gym leader this time, and then I would go straight to the next city. And instead of training my Pokemon, I would just face the gym leader once again. And once I'd face him, I just barely win. But I guess it's a good analogy for not spending too much time in your life thinking, "Am I ready? Am I ready?" and just facing it head on. Obviously, you can't do that forever. Same thing going back to the Pokemon analogy. I could have done that for one or two gyms, but on the third gym, that wasn't happening because now my Pokemon are level 40 and I'm versing level 70 and I'm getting cooked. But I'm just saying you could do that with your life. Maybe you don't feel as ready to face this new challenge, but you face it anyways. And then you realize maybe you were better off than you thought you were. Because unlike Pokemon, where it's like very simple terms and it's levels and levels, you might not know what level you're currently on in your life to complete this thing. And once you do it and you face it, you realize, damn, I'm actually way better than I thought I was, right? Once again, relating it to the podcast because it's what is in my life. Sometimes I wonder if I could have good conversations with this person that I see on Instagram and that I DM and that I schedule. But then every time I leave the conversation, I ask them how was the podcast, and they always say it was amazing. And that kind of raises what I thought in the beginning, my expectations, because I thought it wasn't going to be that good. So just realizing that as well will help you a lot. Another thing you need to focus on is do it for your younger self, right? There is a younger version of you that wanted so many things, wanted the best for you, and you need to wake up and you need to focus on that younger version of you and make that person proud because that is what is important. Not letting him or her down. It's, you know, imagine what they would have think of you if you had that amazing opportunity and you just didn't go for it because you were scared. Your younger self would have been so grateful to have that opportunity, whatever that might look like for your life, right? So it's the same thing. It's like I was watching fitness YouTube and fitness influencers growing up from like 2015 to even now. And I'm interviewing fitness influencers all the time now. And it's amazing because I never thought I could even speak to these people as like, as dumb as that sounds, but it's the truth. And now I'm doing it and I'm making my younger self proud, right? And there's plenty of guests that, are dream guests of mine. And I know when I have them on, I'm going to be so happy and grateful. So do it for the younger you, especially. I think this is one of the biggest kind of philosophies and biggest kind of perspectives you can have in your life is just Everything that you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Maybe right now, if you don't have what you currently want, maybe it's because you're not facing your fears often enough. And that is something that you can meditate with and take away from this podcast is, are you constantly seeking growth, and are you constantly seeking to face your fears? Thank you guys for listening to the podcast and making it this far. If you enjoyed it, remember to follow us on Spotify. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Let me know in the comments what has been the most impactful episode of the Insightful Podcast so far, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Brush a coal to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyming.